Joey? 214. I don't know why I always think it's 214.
Ashrei Vetecha Yalu Hasela Shakavalo Ashram Sharanay Elohim Tila David. Tiladna Yedavepi, Vivareka Basashin Kuchalelam Vahed, Ranachna Yam, Etaviadalam, Hallelujah, Uvalitzion Goel, Shesha Pesha Pekuvim Adonai. V'atakadosh Shefti Lo Yisrael, V'krazel Zeve Amahar, Dosh Kadosh Kadosh, Adonai Tzvah et Tvodoho. V'tisa eni v'ach v'shmacha v'karash gadol, Baruch Adonai mim gomo. Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Titen Emily Yaakov, Chesed l'Avraham, Asher nishbata l'avotenu mimekedem. V'yivdechu v'chayadei shemecha, ki lo azatu roshach Adonai, Adonai chafetz l'man tzidko, yagdil Torah v'yadir.
Chatzikanis 217.
Yitkada v'yitkada Hashemei Rabba, v'amad yivrak yehuteh, v'amlich v'achuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayedecho v'Yisrael, Agalav Yisman Kaviv, Imru, Amen. Yishmei Rabba Mevarach, Le'olam Olamei Almayah, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitma v'yitnatzeh, v'yitadar v'yitala v'yitala shemei d'kudesha b'richum. Le'elam go bechata v'shirata, tushbata v'nachmata damon be'alma, v'imru, Amen. V'ani tfilati lech Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chastecha, neni be'med yishecha. V'yihi binto Aaron, v'yomer Moshe, kumar Adonai v'yafutzoi v'cha, v'yanusu mesanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, v'Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch Shatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
Oh, sorry. I heard you say it, but I still didn't do it.
Gadlu Adonai tiro ma'ashemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagdula ve'hagbura v'tiferet v'netzach ve'hod ki chol hashamayim u'va'aretz lecha Adonai ha'mamlecha minaseh lechol erosh Ramamu Adonai Eloheinu v'shachadu l'adam maglav kadoshu Ramamu Adonai Eloheinu v'shachadu l'har koshu ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. I think it's backwards. There we go. Oh, thanks, Rosemary. All right, we are reading Parshat Pinchas. So if you are in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, Joey can tell you what page. I do not have one in front of me. You don't have to use the microphone. You can just talk.
I want to say for those on Zoom.
Yeah, they're okay.
We're on page 918 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. If you're following along at home from different Chumash or Tanakh, open to the 25th chapter and 10th verse of the book of Numbers. Numbers 25:10.
Okay. Would anybody like an aliyah? Is anybody here for a yard site? Okay, do you want first aliyah? Or you guys can do it together if you want. Anybody else here for a yard site? Okay, anybody want the second aliyah? Don't all speak at once. You want a second aliyah? Great. Deborah's going to take the second aliyah. AJ, you want the third? Great. Okay, perfect.
Are we go?
Sorry?
Have we gone
We should be in the right place because I used it this morning, so I might have just been rolled. Pinchas, there you are. I think that's the first part.
That's the second one.
Pinchas ben Elazar,
Adonai
yeah,
Moshe
that's right.
Lema.
Okay. ותגלה ותר מלכותו לעיני בזמן קרוב ויחום בתשעים פלטת עמו בישראל לחנך חסר רחמים רצה ונאמר אמן הכבוד וכבוד לתורה יעמוד דובר בן שמואל יששכר ובשר רבקה לעלייה ראשון ברוך שנתן תורה לעם ישראל וקדושתו. אתם בגין עליכם עם כולכם היום.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMelech Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, פנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן השיב את חמתי מעל בני ישראל, וקנו את קנאתי בתוכם, ולא כיליתי את בני ישראל בקנאתי, לכן אמור הנני נותן לו את בריתי שלום.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ta'amud. Are you doing it together? Sorry, I can't hear you. Devorah but are the Levi Laliyah Sheni.
Page 919, verse 13.
Are you also gonna do an aliyah?
You want me to, Deborah?
Yeah. I just have to call you up.
Shmuel Eliezer ben Dober HaKohen.
Shmuel Eliezer ben
Dober HaKohen.
Dober HaKohen Laliyah Sheni.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
אמן. והיית לו ולזרעו אחריו ברית ככהונת עולם תחת, אשר קינא לאלוהיו ויכפר על בני ישראל בשם איש ישראל המוכה, אשר הוכה את המדיינית זמרי בן סלו נשיא ותיו לשמעוני, ושם האישה המוכה המדיינית כוזבי בצור, ראש אמות בית אב במדיין הוא.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. Ta'amad. Aniti Yael. Bat Abraham Martalei El Aliyah Shlishit.
Page 919, verse 16.
Oh, wait, up here.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch
Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim Venatan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, צרור את המדיינים והכיתם אותם, כי צוררים הם לכם בנכריהם אשר נקלו לכם על דבר פור ועל דבר כוסבי ותנשיא מדיין אחותם המוכה ביום המגפה על דבר פור, ויהי אחרי המגפה, ויאמר אדוני אל משה ואל אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן לאמור, שאו את ראש כל עדת בני ישראל מבין 20 שנה ומעלה לבית אבותם כל יוצא צבא בישראל. וידבר משה ואלעזר הכהן אותם בערבות מואב על ירדן יריחו לאמור, מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה ובני ישראל היוצאים מארץ מצרים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Someone would like to lift the Torah? You do? Is anyone rap? BJ's gonna rap. I mean, Eitan's gonna rap, but BJ's gonna lift. Ya'amad, Hamagbia, Ya'amad, Hagalel. Please rise. Let's get. Oh, you got it. I figured. Bezot HaTorah asher sam Hashem lifnei bnei Yisrael u'pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tamechei hameshar. Eitz chaim hi
Lamachazikim ba.
v'tamechei hameshar.
Darchei Noam.
Echol tivotei shalom, derachecha darchei noam. Echol tivotei shalom, Does anybody else have an El Male today? I know BJ does. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll do one for BJ's dad, and then I will do one for my uncle. Do you want to hold the Torah? You can stand here. So Shmuel Yisachar, but then Ben.
Mayor.
Ben
Shmuel
Mayor.
HaKohen.
Shmuel Yisachar HaKohen, Ben Meir.
Shmuel Yisachar.
Ben
Ben
Meir
Meir
HaKohen?
HaKohen.
Okay. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'ma'alot kedoshim uteorim, kezor ki amazhirim, lenishmat shmui Sachar, ben Meir Cohen shehalach leolamo, began Eden tehem menuchato, ana ba'al rachamim, Hasirehu beseter knafecha leolamim, utzor bitzor chayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachaloto, ve'anuach beshalom amishkavo, v'nomar amen. Do you want to share anything about your dad?
My dad passed away 9 years ago this week, and still hard because he was very young, and I know this year in particular he would have been very excited to be here for Eitan's bar mitzvah in a few weeks, so we'll be missing him a lot this year.
Yehi zichro baruch. May his memory be for a blessing, and I know that Eitan is going to make him very proud day of, because
Thank
he's
you.
working very hard. So I'm going to do an El Male for my uncle. And just give me 1 second. I just want to make sure this is. There we go. Okay. El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim uTeorim, Kezor ki amazhirim, Lenishmat Hillel ben Zev v'Sara, shehalach le'olamo, began Eden tehem menuchato, ana ba'al rachamim, hasirehu beseter knafecha le'olamim, utzra bitzra chayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, ve'anuach b'shalom amishkavo, v'nomar amen. My uncle also passed away 9 years ago this week. And he was a molecular biologist working at UCLA. The thing that he was working on when he passed away was a cure for lung cancer. And he was the most humble of people. And so we didn't really know how close he was getting and how much he was doing. And he died of pancreatic cancer very, very young. And he was definitely my best friend and the person I was closest to in this world. So it's always very hard to remember his passing, but seeing his 2 little boys running around and being able to be a leader in a Jewish community is something he would have been very proud of. And I love being able to think of him when I share my Judaism and my stories with this community. So thank you. We'll continue the Torah service on page 221 as Alan returns the Torah to the ark. Let me just put this in the front for you. Okay, left side. Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. Adol eretz v'shamayim v'yarim keren le'amo. Tila lecho chasidav, Bnei Yisrael amkrovu hallelujah. LeDavid mizmor, let her heart the Lord.
Sushar v'shechem, zupitche olam, Ava melech hakavod, Yehuda melech hakavod, Adonai tzavod, u'melech hakavod tzavod. U'nechoyo mahar. It's time came out in Babdom, Chacham Shah, Drakadach Noam, Bahonidut Shalom, Hashiven Lecha, Vinashuva, Hadesh Yameinu Kedem, Adam Yikadash Be'aba
Amen.
Be'aba Divar Kirteva Mikmachuteva Chayechon Yomechon Vacherecho Be'Yisrael Ba'yolav Izman Karivimu Amen Ish Be'aba Ve'lam Me'avaya Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitbar Vitma Vitnaseh V'Yitad Havid Alevid Alashem Edikudisha V'Hu Le'elam Ingo Bechata V'Shirata Tishbachta V'Nechmata Daman Ve'Amavimu Amen.
The Whispered Amidah can be found on page 223. Given that you're finished, Jeremy Duff, please continue at your own pace. Alan will lead us through the repetition, which can be found again on page 223, and we'll join together with him for the Kedusha on page 225.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu le'avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Hayel HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'konei HaKol V'zoher Chastei Avod Mevigo Elipnei V'nehem L'man Shemo Be'ava Melech Ozer V'Geder Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Pokei Tzara Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechem Tarav L'Oshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechem Mitim B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Ofer Cholim U'Matzir Asurim V'Kayem Anato Lishanei Avar Michamocha B'Gevorot U'Mido Melach Melech Me'Minochem Atzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman Atal Achayot Beitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei HaMeitim מקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שבקתי שיבתו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות בארץ, ברוך ימיהו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור יגודלך, לנצח נצח מקדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו למוש לעולם ועד. כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה אחד ושמך אחד, ומכל חסר גוי אחד בארץ, תפארת גדולה, ועטרת ישועה, יום מנוחה, קדושה לעמך נתת, אברהם יגר, יצחק ירנן, יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו, מנוחת אהבת ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ובטח, מנוחה שלמה שאתה רוצה בה, יכירו בניך וידעו כי איתך היא מנוחתם, ועל מנוחתם יקדישו את שמך. אלוהינו ואבותינו, וצא במנוחתנו, נעצנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו בעבר ורצון שבת קודשך, ואנוכו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ותפילתה, והשבת עבודך לדביר ביתך, ותפילה באהבה תקבל ברצון, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך, ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים, ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון, מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כאילו חלו רחמך, ברכים כאילו תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יפרח מנעם שמך מלכנו, תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל יודוך סלע, ויעלו את שמך באמת, הישועתנו וזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. שלום רב ישראל עמך, ועל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם. כי אתה מלך אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך. לברך דמך עשר בכל עת וכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל ושלום. צדקתך צדק לעולם, ותורתך אמת, וצדקתך אלוהים עד מרום אשר עשית גדולות. אלוהים מי כמוך, צדקתך כהראל, משפטך תהום רבה. אדם ובהמה תושיע אדוני. יקרא ויגדש ברבה, בעמד יברכו ותבמליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחייכו בישראל, פגלה בזמן קריב עמו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי, Yiparach Vishtapach Vitpar Vitma Vitnase Vita Darvida Levida Lajavida Kudisha Rehu Le'elam Indo Bechata Vishirata Tushmata Venakamata Devan Bama Vimu Amen Kika Basta Ruba Honda Israel Kadam Rushma Vimu Amen Yehi Shalama Ramin Shmaya Bechaim Elenu Elko Yisrael Vimu Amen Ose Shalom Imama Vuya Ose Shalom Alenu Elko Yisrael Vimu Amen Aleinu Leshabeach Ladon HaKol V'ne'emar v'hayad Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz V'yom ahu yad Adonai echad u'shemo echad
page 232.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah
Amen.
Ve'alma tivra kirute ve'amlich malchute V'chayechon u'yomechon u'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael Ha'agala u'izman kariv ve'imru Amen Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam amen umaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitboar v'yitromam v'yitnatzeh V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudisha, b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rava min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Amen. Yasher koach to Alan and to Rosemary for reading Torah. Please grab some nash, and then we will come back around 8-ish to learn a little bit together. But grab something to eat. There's leftovers from Kiddush this morning, so enjoy the extras. Not picked over leftovers, just leftovers. Here they do? Here?
Not here, they had it at Library Video.
Oh.
Curry tuna, which is my all-time favorite.
Yes.
And it was leftover. And I couldn't even eat it anymore.
There's pasta in it? Oh, really? Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a currant or is it white raisins? It's white raisins, I think. I think they're
Really?
pineapple.
Oh, maybe.
I haven't tasted pineapple, but I think you're right about
I know that sometimes there's like carrot salads have pineapple in them.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
yeah, that's
bizarre
true.
mix of
Sure.
things that shouldn't be good, that's
Right.
really good somehow.
Yeah, I agree. I don't usually like that much stuff. That kind of stuff, I should say. I like a lot of stuff in tuna, but I don't usually like that kind of stuff. I don't usually like savory and sweet together.
Oh, I like savory sweets too. I like the, like my salad.
Yeah.
I always put like
Oh,
mango or
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I don't love like dried
Absolutely
fruit.
incredible.
There's one salad that I make that I put dried fruit in, and it's like an arugula. It's like a winter salad. It's like arugula and pear and like all those things all combined. But that's really the only salad that I. Yeah, right. It's kind of like a medium salad for sure. But I don't have so many. Like if I eat a normal salad, I don't put like fruit in it typically.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. It's funny. Yesterday I was at my parents' house for Shabbat because we have family in Australia, and so I. Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. I was eating. Like my mom was gonna pull out this big salad, and she hadn't dressed it yet, and I put like non-dairy ranch and barbecue sauce. So I was like, oh, like as a kid, I feel like we used to go like CPK and get, you know, the barbecue chicken chop with no chicken, with avocado. And I was like, oh, I can make this myself. That was very exciting. I'd never done it before. I don't know why. It was very. Yeah.
It's in the senior center.
Yeah, there were corn and black beans.
Have you been to
Yeah,
Baltimore?
it was corn, black beans,
So it's
tomato,
the
cucumber,
35 years in the senior center.
scallions. Yeah. And I put like corn chips on top of it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, when we used to go to CPK, we used to get it without chicken but with avocado. Because then you could, then it was kosher.
The building was still at least not traced.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's funny, Aaron Alexander always says it's kosher by tradition. That was like, kind of like what you're saying. Like people always say, oh, it's not a kosher restaurant. Like, is it not a kosher restaurant or it's not a kosher restaurant?
So the building is in the city states.
Oh, did you? I don't know, I know that it's like
Or
a.
maybe it's something that's
And
up and coming.
then they
maybe.
built a
I
whole
mean, it
new
makes
building
sense,
in the
there's no
suburbs,
reason
and
for
it
it to
didn't
not,
last long
for them to
because
not be
it
considered.
was mostly a
So
lot of older
maybe
people,
because I
many of them
came
died out, and they ended up having to merge into another congregation.
like modern Orthodox
Right,
down here, I believe they still kept that building.
The new building is just hopefully another Jewish organization.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, also like in terms of, you know, there's so many places now that will give you like an impossible, I mean,
Right,
Pat's will give you an impossible burger, well, they don't put cheese on it, but like a place like that would give you an impossible burger with cheese. Like, we for my, what was it, BJ, what was that place called that we went to for my interview weekend? It's now, it's now the big kitchen place. What it used to be called?
It's been like 5 things.
I know. I was just talking, I was just saying that like,
Like a tavern.
This is our
Right.
first time here in 4 years.
it was,
But it was, wasn't it Slate Chick, right?
it's iced coffee, it's like cold coffee, yeah. What?
Well, I got food already.
It was Slate Chick, right, but I remember that we got stuff that was like Slate with fake dairy. Coffee.
Me, it's,
But
I ate too much for lunch.
Oh, that's hot mitzvah.
No,
There's
actually,
another
we
really
had
good
guests
place,
from out
like,
of town,
you know where the
and so we made a big
theatrical
lunch.
thing over
Yeah.
there? That was another
After-
place.
I never heard our senior staff.
I had multiple,
No.
I already
When I
had
was
my
in
3
there,
meals.
we
I
used
got
to have
food
the
at the
exec
meeting
meeting
was so
room,
good that
and so we were each here for exec,
like
and
we
then it
wanted
ended
to eat
early,
lots of
and we had a board meeting right after.
we felt
And
so
I
full
was-
by the time it was
I don't know if
over.
I was presenting at both or just exec, but same for whatever, for whatever reason I was going to
How
both
was the bar
meetings.
mitzvah?
And there was like an abnormal amount of time
The,
in
no,
between.
she's amazing.
And so Ari
She's so
said
sophisticated for
throughout the
someone her
film,
age.
It's
hey,
amazing,
She
right?
spoke like a,
great.
like a professional.
Wow.
And
It's amazing. So,
and Veronica was like, great, let's go.
not that the.
Rebecca, you're driving.
The boys that we know, but the girls.
Of course, I'm driving. So we get in my car, we get shadows.
It's not you, not like,
I think
it's not
it's
every
me,
bar mitzvah boy or bat mitzvah
Rabbi
girl.
Lucas,
Like,
Rabbi
some of them are,
Quintel.
I've seen so many bar and bat mitzvahs throughout my life. Some of them are very, like they struggle
I don't know, I
to
remember
do
it's great.
it.
You drive
There's
like
so much
something.
confidence.
So we all get warm
Very.
drinks. I think they get beer.
I don't know how that's.
And
so well.
we had to like chug it because we had to be back from our board meeting. So here we are, like these rabbis from North Lebanon, like downing alcohol before we get back from our board meeting. And then we get in the car and I think we're like
This
in
is
high
like our
school
go-to
trying to like
Sunday
hide
when
this
we're-
head alcohol. Where's the gun? Where's the gun? I was like, fuck.
We live in
What?
Baltimore.
When did we all turn into 18-year-olds? Like, this is so
You're not flying planes.
Exactly, that's why we
We're
like, we
okay.
stayed there, we like that
This is
hotel.
one of my
for-
favorite
like a place to
stories.
spot.
Right.
We like
Yeah.
that congregation.
Yeah.
It's funny how kosher restaurants are either here for like
Nearby,
a year
that's why.
or like.
Ever.
So this is like our go.
Well, we appreciate being able to be here for you when you're in town. How long are you in town for?
For like about a week,
Okay.
and then we're going back to, this is a 2-week trip for us, we're spending a week in Vegas and a week in LA.
I always say.
Nice. Sounds like you're gonna have a great
I always
time.
fly in, I get in late,
Yeah.
9 o'clock at night, I'm always by myself. I go to.
Not be
Point
drinking
Reyes.
tea
Oh,
at this
yeah.
hour and keeping up all night.
You know,
It is what it is.
there's
Oh
rack
my God, there's macaroni. I just have to take a picture for Eric.
Yes.
JTS, like special occasion, steak up law.
Wow.
He said that, somebody said it, but it
So leftovers,
was like
you should
$9
I'm allergic to it.
meat and sushi.
I understand.
And all of a sudden, you won't eat anything.
It looks so good. I used to eat that stuff until I was having problems for a long time. I didn't realize that was really good.
Bingo. Good, yeah.
Pretty good.
Oh, good. Good. Enjoy.
Yeah, it has tomatoes in it. And bread and cheese too.
Makes it healthy. Makes it a healthy micronutrient. Okay, I think we'll get started because this is a bit of a longer session than last time when I thought that it was gonna be short. Y'all made it long, so let's start now. I know, it's great. I'm not complaining. I'm just preparing.
Wow. Oh, I see what you did here. You made it so that half of it.
Oh, I need one. Okay.
Top, so
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we are going to move this so I can see. Okay. We are going to we're going to start learning a little bit. I did not make enough copies, which is awesome. So those of you who came together, I gave you only one copy, and hopefully you're okay sharing. We are going to study a bit about Parshat Pinchas from an angle that you've probably studied like 50% of what we're going to do today, and I hope that the other 50% is new to you. So Parshat Pinchas is the parsha where we get the story of the daughters of Tzlofchad, which I put on this source sheet to make a point, but that's not going to be our main study focus for today. We're actually going to talk about another woman who is mentioned in this week's parsha. For many of you, you probably know that women are not typically named often in the books of our Torah. What? But there are many, and AJ has counted. So there are 8 who are named specifically in this parsha, and we're going to look at the daughters of Tzlofchad, which is 5, and then Serach, which is 6. So the really interesting piece, and I'll take you through this a little bit. The really interesting piece about this parsha and how the women are mentioned is that we're going through clans, right? We're going through how clans were counted, and before we get to all the different names, it says that it's the men over the age of 20. So you don't actually even expect to hear women mentioned, and then all of a sudden we hear women mentioned. So to me, kind of the alarms that go off, the bells that go off when I see something like that is, why say that only the men were counted, but then single out certain women to name? Because if you're actually naming women, then clearly you were counting both. So why say that you were only counting one gender when you're going to name people of both? This camera's a very weird angle. I'm just gonna feel like people are kind of looking up my nose here. Okay, so we're gonna focus. I'm gonna take you through these 2 different, let's call them stories, but then we're gonna really spend most of our time on Serach Bat Asher. So what you see on this source sheet right here is a lot of text. We're not going to get through all of it. You've probably never come to Sudash Lishit and been given a 4-page document, but I wanted you to have all of some of these texts, even though we're not going to read through them, because I just think they're fascinating. So we're going to start with the daughters of Tzlofchad because they come up first in our parsha. So chapter 26 of Bamidbar of Numbers, verse 33. So it says, I'm just going to read in the English because again, we're not going to dive deeply into it. Now Tzlofchad, son of Chefer, had no sons, only daughters. The names of Tzlofchad's daughters were Machla, Noah, Cholga, Milka, and Tirza. By the way, a lot of these names are used in modern day Hebrew. I know lots of Tirzas, you all know, not lots of Noahs, right? So these are not like all the other names that we sometimes hear when listed that people make fun of, like why are they, we never use any of these names, but these are actually used very often. Those are the clans of Manasseh. Men enrolled, I purposely didn't change this to be gender neutral so you can see kind of this discrepancy, which is very interesting. Those are the clans of Manasseh. Men enrolled 52,700. These are the descendants of Ephraim by their clans of, let me see if I can say this in correctly, Shutelach, the clan of Shutalachi, of Becher, the son of Becherites, of Tachan, the clan of Tachanites, right? Tachanim. So again, we're talking about a big number of men, but then we happen to just mention these 5 women. Just a few verses later, 9 verses later, we get this. The name of Asher's daughter was Serach. These are the clans of Asher's descendants. Men enrolled 53,400. So what I want you to see here, again, I'm just laying these 2 pieces out just so you can kind of hear the language. What I want you to see here is that, and if you open up your Chumash, I didn't want to copy the entire Chumash, but if you open up your Chumash, you'll see many other clans also listed with numbers, men enrolled blank, this clan named blank. But what you'll see here is that it's saying men enrolled, but then all of a sudden we're naming these women in the middle. And are they not part of that count? Are they just being singled out because they're super special? We'll get there in a second. So the story of the daughters of Zelophehad is the following. I'm gonna read through it, even though I think most of us know it, and then I'm gonna ask you why you think that they were then named, why the daughters were then named in the Torah. Because remember, the Torah doesn't it has an economy of language, so it doesn't use any words frivolously. We are using words intentionally. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Among these shall the land be apportioned as shares according to the listed names that were recited above." We're going in order here, right? So we met all these characters. Now we're getting the story behind the daughters of Zelophehad. With larger groups, increase the share. With smaller groups, reduce the share. Bigger clans, bigger land. Smaller clans, smaller land. Makes sense. Each is to be assigned its share according to its enrollment, which is why it tells us a number. The land, moreover, is to be apportioned by lot, and the allotment shall be made according to the listings of their ancestral tribes. Each portion shall be assigned by lot, whether for larger or smaller groups. The daughters of Zelophehad, of Masonite family, son of Chefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Menashe, son of Yosef, came forward. So you can see that Joseph, right? The Joseph we all know from Shemot, from Exodus. These are his great-great-granddaughters, I think, if I did that correctly. The names of the daughters were Malcha, Noah, Holga, Milcah, and Tirzah. Not only do we get them named once, we get them named twice, right? So we're going to remind you again of their names. That's how important it was. They stood before Moshe, Eleazar the priest, the chieftains, and the whole assembly at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and they said, "Our father died in the wilderness. He was not one of the faction, Korach's faction, which banded together against God, but died for his own sin, and he has left us no sons. Sorry. Let not our father's name be lost to his clan just because he had no son. Give us a holding among our father's kinsmen." So there are a few things happening here that are surprising. Number one, they open their mouth, right? There are not many women for whom we hear of them speaking. Every woman since Chava, since Eve in Genesis, speaks, but we hear of a man speaking for her, or a serpent speaking for them, right? It's not that the woman is speaking on their own behalf. In this story, the women not only are named and present, but are speaking and are asking for something, right? That's the second surprising thing. They're not just speaking to pray, they're speaking to ask for something. They're advocating for themselves, which has not yet happened in our Torah by women. Sometimes people say Miriam. Miriam definitely advocated for her people. Not sure that she advocated for herself, and it was done through song and never directly, right? It was done kind of communally. Not to say that that wasn't admirable, but it isn't the same kind of advocacy that these women are doing here, straight to the source. Moses brought their case before God, and God said to Moses. So now this kind of goes back into a general form and function of the Torah of someone speaks to Moses, but Moses has to be the one to speak to God, right? So unfortunately, when we're in Genesis and Exodus, we hear of people speaking directly to God. Unfortunately, when we get to Bamidbar, there is a distance here. So even though the women are doing something extremely powerful, it's still to the leader, not to God, to the source. make of that what you will. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just what's happening. The plea of Tzlofchad's daughters is just. So this is God speaking, right? God is speaking back to Moshe and says, they're right. You should give them a hereditary holding among their father's kinsmen. Transfer their father's share to them, right? So not only did they speak up and as women, but as women, they changed a law. And God said, you know what? You're right. This is something that we should be doing for you as well. Further, this is still God. Further, speak to the Israelite people as follows. If a householder dies without leaving a son, you shall transfer his property to his daughter. If he has no daughter, you shall assign his property to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall assign his property to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, you shall assign his property to his nearest relative in his own clan who shall inherit it. So if I was teaching this, for like a feminist class, I would say, God sort of got it, right? He got it for the daughters of Tzlofchad, but then we go back into this pattern of, there's no sons, so give it to this man or this man or this man or this man. But by the end of that list, you get to God saying, and if none of those people exist, give it to the closest family member, right? So that could be a female. It's not written here that it should be a female, but it could be. So the law is being changed completely. This shall be the law of procedure for the Israelites in accordance with God's command to Moses. Sorry that I kept God's name in there. I tried to get rid of them all, but this one got snuck in there. So what we're getting here is this not only change of law, advocacy by women. It is a very radical experience for our Torah. Right? Hopefully it's not radical for us in today's day, though in some circles it would be. But in the Torah, this is a completely radical piece of narrative and story to be sharing, probably why it's in the Torah. So my question for you is, why do they have to be named? Why are the daughters named? Great story, amazing work, but why do we need to know their names? Okay, great. To humanize them? Because they were the first ones to start the law?
No, they're the first one who requested.
Right. Oh, so that's why they should be named. Right, so we give them credit. Great, fabulous. Yeah, Rosa?
Sometimes you wonder what their names mean. And I mean, we do that with a lot of the men in the Torah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so maybe their names are connected somehow to this story, and the meaning of their names is therefore important, and allows rabbis to give drashot, which is great. Yeah, BJ.
Well, I think the fact, well, two things, that they're getting assigned land, so I think it's important that they be reported.
Great.
Right, and I guess I was just thinking as you're reading, not after the name, but it's still pretty revolutionary. We're Downton Abbey fans.
Yeah.
So it's 2,000 years later, like just 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And what's the plot of the pilot? He has no sons.
Right.
And they're trying to find a male heir.
Right.
And so even in the 1920s,
Totally.
there was no inheritance going to the daughter.
Sure.
So anyways, it's amazing that it just shows how revolutionary this was.
For sure. And I think that BJ's point is that it's revolutionary for the time, and unfortunately even 100 years ago was revolutionary for the time, right? That we're still trying to work in areas that need women to be advocating, or to not just put it on the women's shoulders, but for society to be advocating for these things to be equalized, especially land, especially hereditary pieces of, what's it called when you give your, yeah, it's redundant, but yes, inherit.
They're getting deeded land, so
Right.
It is important that they get recorded.
For sure. And so like the tachlis of just recording names, because they are getting land, we need to know who's getting that land, and it's important to know that it was them. Yeah.
What I've been thinking of, there are quite a lot of things it says in the Torah when a person is named as some anonymous person, or named,
Right.
An example like being Potiphar's wife is just named as Potiphar's
Correct.
wife, but we don't know her name.
Right. Right. So that's exactly my question. Why are these women then named if all of those women are so often just anonymous, right? Like, or the wife of, or the daughter of, right? So,
I don't think they should be named. I mean, you have a lot of baby names in the Sunday, in all synagogues, there's a lot of baby
sure,
names.
we hope, yeah.
It's interesting when the parents talk about why they're naming their babies.
Mhm.
I find that very interesting,
Sure.
why they came up with a certain name. You know, you wouldn't name your baby that, but I always want to listen to where they came up with the name.
Sure, I think names definitely show us a piece of identity and also show us in today's day often a value set or where history now plays into the present. BJ, do you want to say something?
Keep going when you're talking.
Okay, Sandra.
This kind of follows up, I think. But both inheritance
Yeah,
and the transfer of property are inherently legal
Right.
systems.
right,
And in order to perpetuate a transfer of property of any sort,
yeah.
you need to identify who is taking it.
Right. And I think that's what BJ was getting at, right? Is it when something formal, legal, however you wanna name it, like
Also, you actually need.
right, that's what I was about to say. Right, you need to know exactly who it's going to. It can't just be, this group or this family. It has to be specific to who is receiving it. Yeah.
Actually, there's something else sort of revolutionary in there, just
Yeah.
slightly further up, because the daughters come forward and they make the point that their father died in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Due to his sin, right? He
Yeah.
wasn't part of Korach's family, but he died due to sin,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Which is interesting they point that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also revolutionary is that despite him having sinned so bad that he died,
Yeah.
the sins of the father don't transfer to the children, right? So they're not being held
Interesting.
accountable for the sin of their father that really he died for.
Yeah.
And yet still they fully inherit. And so I think that was pretty revolutionary.
Right. So it's interesting. Yeah, you can. Let me just repeat it. But no, it's great. So the idea that the daughters mention and in a sort of way are prideful of the fact that he didn't die because he was part of Korach's clan, but he died because of some other sin that he did, and yet they don't end up holding on to that sin for themselves. And what I've never thought about before, BJ, is had they been sons, would that sin have been transferred, right? Like, does that trickle down, but not to the daughters?
So my question is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which is, what is the effect
Yeah.
of their father having died
Mm.
on them? It's not just that the sin doesn't transfer to them, but it's more that we should be punished. Because if they don't have any brothers, if there are no male
Right.
heirs, they're homeless.
Totally.
They now just don't inherit a land, they don't have a clan, they don't have anything.
Right.
And so they're saying, okay, our father died for just kind of a normal thing.
Right.
So we shouldn't be punished by being essentially cast out and homeless.
Right. And also women back in the day, and again,
If they had a brother, if their father was still alive and could give him
Right.
a male heir, they would be attached to them.
Right, exactly. So what Sandra's saying is like this idea that without a male relative, let's put it that way, they are completely alone, right? They're no longer connected to anything because everything was connected through a male heir. And the fact that they were going to end up homeless and clanless and communityless if none of this came their way, they're basically saying like this bad thing already happened to us. We need to make sure that there's something to protect us, right? Like we've already gotten rid of our family and our clan because we don't have a father to connect us to that any longer. We now need something that's going to connect us to something so that we are people. And they don't say this, but when we think back to the story of Ruth that we read on Shavuot, there is a certain sense of without a husband, without sons for me to marry, who am I, right? I need to be connected to, and in that day and age, a man, a partner of some kind, so that I can be somebody, because in that day, these women wouldn't have had any connection without that. So God allows them connection even without partnership or heirs to be connected to. AJ. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Right. Right. For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. 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 Mm. Sure. Sure. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And maybe that sin was then connected in such a way to like just the lack of desire, right? Of uh-huh. Disconnected. Yeah. Yeah. Sure, sure. Right. 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 Yeah. Totally. Totally. And then I want to move on, but this morning in the bat mitzvah, I spoke to our bat mitzvah about the fact that there's a line in the parsha that that Balaam has not listened to the donkey, right? And somehow that's seen as a sin. And there's this really beautiful commentary that says, how can it be a sin if he didn't know what was going on, right? It can't be a sin that you didn't listen to someone if you didn't know why you should be listening to them. But what the commentary says is you're a person. You should be able to think through all the different reasons for which you might listen to somebody even if you don't agree with them. And so too, when we look at the word sin here, right, is it really that they did something wrong, or that they weren't willing to like step outside of their comfort zone of having once been taken care of and now, well, taken care of in the sense that they had people that were, it might not have been the best thing in the world, but they were being fed and they were being housed, right? It just wasn't freedom, but it still was, it was comfortable. It was more comfortable than the unknown, right? Okay. So anyway, let's keep going. Cause again, there's like 75 things here that I would like to get to at least 3 of. Bava Batra comes in and says, they were named because they stood up for what they believed in, and they should be named because we should know who these people were that used their voice, right? You can read the whole thing if you want, but that's the summary. That there was no reason for them to be a group that went up against Moshe and said, actually, you're wrong, this is what we need, and they got what they want. And so they should be named because we should each have the courage to be able to do that even at an auspicious time. Okay. Back in Genesis, Serach ben Asher is also mentioned. We just kind of gloss over it because it's a part of Genesis where a lot of names are being read, and so we just kind of gloss over them. So, what? She's not old yet, right? That's what we're going to get to in a second. So it says here in Genesis, it says, Uvnei Asher, Yimna, Veyishva, Veyishvi, Uvriat, right? This is all those names that you're never going to hear anybody named for. Serach Achotam, right? So these are all the sons, and then a daughter is named, which is amazing, right? Very rare for us to hear a sister listed. Uvnei Vri'ah, Chever, Malkiel, right? And then it goes on to say, and Beriah's sons were these guys. So what Rashi says is, let's pause here for a second. Who's this Serach person who just kind of popped up in the middle of a list of boys who were being named? She's still the reason that she's named, Rashi is saying, Rashi always has a question that he's answering, and the question that Rashi's answering here is, why is she named, right? Why is she special? Why is she being named here at all? And it says because she still remained alive after all these long years. It exceptionally mentions her here, right? So we're going to read a midrash in a second that says that she was just a very, very wise old woman. She lived a very long time, kind of in a magical way. There was something about her longevity that was like seen to be beyond the years that anybody lived, not just, oh, she was 120, but like even older, right? She was kind of like a prophetess in that way, that she lived beyond a timeline for someone's life, and again, like in a magical-ish way. So Shmot Rabbah, the Midrash on Shmot, the book of Midrash on Shmot says, there was a secret sign handed down to the Israelites in Egypt, a legacy left by Jacob, who entrusted it to Joseph, and he again to his brother Asher, who handed it down to his daughter Serach. Right? I didn't even bring the rest of the midrash because that's really all you need to know, right? What's really so powerful about this is that there was this secret sign, something that was so powerful to be handed down generation after generation after generation, that when it got to Asher, who was Joseph's brother, he's listed by Andrew Lloyd Webber in the musical also, right? He's one of the kids. When it gets to Asher, who does he give it to? Not this list of boys that we just heard. He has tons of sons, but he gives it to his daughter. There was something very powerful about that, right? This is Midrash. This is not Torah. So, you know, we are taking this as interpretation, not necessarily fact from the Torah, but all these rabbis are trying to answer the question of why is she mentioned? There must be something special about her for her to be mentioned at all. This next piece of text is long, but it's a story, so hopefully it'll go quickly. It just looks long on the page, so I'm going to read it, and then I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So again, this is also Midrash. It's just on the book of Genesis. So it's coming from when she's first listed in Breshit. And when Joseph had finished giving them his orders, he turned and went back into Egypt. And the sons of Jacob went to the land of Canaan in joy and happiness to their father. And when they came to the boundaries of the land, they said to one another, "What shall we do in bringing this matter before our father?" Right? This is the moment in the Joseph story where they all know who Joseph is, and Joseph says to them, "Hey, you guys need to go back to dad and let him know that I'm alive." And so they're standing on the cusp of, I'm kind of imagining, you know, when you get off the plane and you're like, so what do we do next, right? Do we order an Uber? Do we go get lunch, right? This is that moment of like, okay, there's a fork in the road here. What are we going to do? Because we have some big news and we should probably think about what are our next steps, not just plunging right in. For if we impart it to him suddenly and tell him all about it, he'll be greatly astounded at our words and he will refuse to listen to us. You've probably all heard of people who are elderly not having surprise parties, right? That having a surprise party for someone who's 100, for example, could be more harmful than it is beautiful, right? You could surprise someone so much that even though you have the right intentions, you could cause a heart attack, you cause them to fall, right? Whatever it is, you have to think through what news can do to people of a certain age. So this kind of news of you thought your son was dead for all these years, no, but actually he's alive. You have to think through how you're going to share that news, both so that he believes you, because if he thinks it's a joke, it's going to be harmful and hurtful. And also that you do it in such a way that you don't harm him physically, right? That he's not so shocked that it harms him. And when they went on until they approached their houses, they met Serach, Asher's daughter, coming towards them. And the damsel was exceedingly beautiful and wise, and a skilled player on the harp. And they called her, and she came to them, and she kissed them, right? These are all her uncles, probably cousins also, but uncles. And they took her and gave her a harp, saying to her, "Go, we pray thee, before our father, and sit down before him," her grandfather. "Strike this harp, and speak to him according to these words." And they instructed her concerning what she had to say, and she hastened to Jacob, and she sat down before him. And she sang, and she played beautifully upon the harp, And she sang in the sweetness of her voice, Joseph, my uncle, is alive, and he reigns over all of Egypt. He is not dead. And she often repeated these words, and Jacob heard her words, and it pleased him greatly. And when he heard her sing it twice and 3 times, the heart of Jacob was possessed by joy through the sweetness of her voice. And the Spirit of God came over him, and he knew that all her words were true. And Jacob blessed Serach for singing these words before him, and he said, My daughter, may death never prevail against you forever, for you have revived my spirit. Only repeat this song once more before me, for you have caused me gladness with your words. And she sang once more the same words, and Jacob listened, and he was pleased, and he rejoiced, and the Spirit of God came over him. And while he was yet speaking with her, his sons came before him with horses and chariots and royal garments and servants running before them. This part is in the Torah. And Jacob arose and went to meet them, and he saw his sons dressed in royal garments and all the good things that Joseph sent to them. And they said to him, to Jacob, Be informed that our brother Joseph lives. That is a typo. And that he rules, another typo, over the whole land of Egypt. And it is he who has spoken to us all we have told you. And Jacob heard all the words of his sons, and his heart fainted, for he believed them not, until he saw all that Joseph had given them, and that Joseph had sent along with them, and all the signs he had spoken to them. And they unpacked all the things, this is all in Torah. He unpacked all the things before him, and they displayed all that Joseph had sent, and they gave to every one of them what Joseph had sent him. And Jacob knew that they had spoken the truth, and Jacob greatly rejoiced on account of his son. And he said, It is enough, Joseph, my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. And his sons told to him all that had befallen them. And Jacob said, I will go down to Egypt to see my son and my children. Right? Interesting that he's in front of his children, but that he's categorizing all of his children only when Joseph is connected with them. And Jacob rose up, and he put on the garments which Joseph had sent to him. And he put a turban upon his head, which Joseph had sent him after washing and shaving himself, right? Because he was in mourning, so he hadn't washed and he hadn't shaven. And all the men of the house of Jacob and their wives dressed themselves with the things that Joseph had sent them. And they rejoiced greatly on account of Joseph, that he was still alive, and that he was a ruler over Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Canaan heard the news, and they came and rejoiced with Jacob on account of Joseph, that he was still alive. So there's something very powerful here about Serach, right? What does she do in this story? Yeah, she's the good messenger. And how does she prepare her grandfather?
By singing and playing the harp and repeating the chorus
Yeah.
words. The son, Joseph is alive and reigning in Egypt.
Yeah, she does it through music. She does it through calm, sweet nature, right? There's no surprise. There's no big group of people. She just goes to be with her grandfather and share some news, right? And the news that she shares is big news, but she does it in a small way, right? And I don't mean small in a bad way. She does it in a very sweet, calming, mundane way. And because of that, her grandfather says to her, I'm going to gift you with long life because you've given me life at a time when I didn't expect to have long life. And so now I'm going to gift you that you have a life that endures forever. So that's where we get this idea that Serach was kind of this magical old woman who lived forever because she brought life to other people. Yeah, AJ. It's okay, we're about to get further down, so you're okay. Do you want to take us there? So all I'll say about the Zohar, and Rabbi Shapiro is going to be so mad because I told him I was going to be teaching Zohar. So everyone read it at home. But I am going to skip over just for time's sake. It's a very interesting piece of Zohar where basically these students, who were all men at the time, go to their teacher Shimon Bar Yochai, and they say to him, "Hey, we noticed that there were these different rooms that we were never allowed in. Who are they for?" And the Zohar ends up taking you through all these powerful women over the course of our history who were studying in these rooms. So the first one is Batya.
Mystical changes that when they elevated themselves, they were like, oh, okay, we can't see these chambers.
Exactly.
We can't go in there. What is that?
Exactly. So yes, they're mystical chambers and that they come from the Zohar. I should have made that clear. Sorry?
There's supposed to be more of it.
Right. Well, the Zohar says there's only 4 described here, but there were 6 that the students mentioned. You are correct. So one was Batya, right? And they speak as to why she was there. The second one is Serach. I'll read you the Serach one just so you have a sense of what this is saying. In another chamber, Serach bat Asher comes, and so many thousands and thousands of women who merit to be with her. 3 times a day, the announcement comes, the likeness of Yosef, the tzaddik, is coming. With joy, she goes out, right? Similar to the joy that she brings to her grandfather, to that curtained area which is dedicated to her, and observes light with the likeness of Yosef. With joy, she bows before it, saying, happy was that day when I gave the tidings before my grandfather that you, Joseph, were still alive. Then she returns to the rest of the women, and they delve into the praises of the ruler of the world and praise the name, meaning God. How many places and joys and that each and every one of them had, that they return and dive into the precepts of Torah along with their meanings. There's something so powerful here about the fact that there was this room where if you wanted to have this kind of connection to Torah and God, you went to be with Serach, and that's what you got in your learning. Like your Beit Midrash room was dedicated to Serach, right? This one's dedicated to Pilch, and that one was dedicated to Serach, right? There's a certain power behind who was in that space that you would then have that connection to Torah and Judaism. So then it goes into Yocheved. Devorah is another one. It's a very, very interesting piece that you can read through. But we're not going to do it right now. AJ, take us to the next. Yeah. Yeah. True. Right. In Parsha Pinchas. Yes, that's true. Okay, so take us to the last piece. The last piece is Midrash on Mishlei, on actually a line from Eshet Chayil, Pia Patcha Bechokma V'Torat Chesed Al Leshona. So yes, AJ, go ahead.
The mouth opens in wisdom. She's a wise woman that says, listen, speak please to God. Come here and I will speak with you. She saved the city through her wisdom. This was set off by Asher.
Yeah.
So this is not the only person who saved the city, but she did it directly rather than trying to run away from the responsibility.
Yeah, that's interesting. Who else are you thinking of? Oh, sure. No, it's okay. That's okay. Right. So Jonah kind of is. Jonah's a very different character when it comes to saving a city. Well, let's just put it that way. But Serach, it seems, did. Sorry. He had a reason. Yes. Seems to have done it with wisdom and with, again, similar to her story with her grandfather, with her mouth, right? Maybe with song in this case, or with words of wisdom. But the reason I put this on here is because I think there's something to be said for not it just being active. And this is what connects it back to the daughters of Tzlofchad, right? That they were wise because of the way that they used their words and their advocacy. They didn't build an ark or build a tabernacle or do any of these big, work projects. And I'm not saying that stereotypically. Those are just the things that people in our Torah are often named for. But they used their words. They used their words to do something that was praiseworthy, and then they were praised, right? And they were valued for what their words did for the world. So in terms of the daughters of Tzlofchad, women were then given land and given rights around inheritance. And for Serach bat Asher, there is a certain sense of being connected to our words in a way that we can give back life or save people. Here speaking specifically to a city, but of course in the story that we read, it was specific to a person and to a family. So yes, Alan, last word.
Is this last story based on what was going on with Joshua coming in there, and they had the woman who said that the rope baiting was like the protection there in Jericho?
I would have to go back into Samuel and see where it's exactly coming from. It's very possible. I just don't know the citation off the top of my head, but it's very, very possible. You're curious because that was another woman involved? Yeah.
The woman who saved the
Right.
city. I wanted to know if
That's why I was asking AJ if she was thinking of someone specific. It's possible. I didn't look at the citation before putting it on here, but it's very possible. I was more interested in the connection back to the daughters of Slofcha in terms of words, but yeah, it's possible. It's okay. We can all look it up. It's Shmuel Bet. It's Samuel 2, the second book of Samuel, chapter 20, verse 16.
you know what really impressed me was she was the channel that basically said Moses is okay.
Yeah.
Such a messenger to the people.
Yeah. Yeah. Her and Miriam.
Carried
Yeah.
the secret passage.
Right. Right.
For people who were ready to accept the exit.
Right. Right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Right. I didn't bring that story, but yes, this story should start out as 8 pages. I felt like 4 was already too long, but yes, there are many stories of what Serach did. I can send you the rest of it. So Shabbat Shalom. I hope that this brings a little bit of joy, but also enlightenment to the story of the Parsha of Pinchas. And now you'll look for these women's names when you read through the Parsha, and not just see them as listed, but also know the stories behind them. So thank you for learning with me. We're gonna do a very quick beer cox. I didn't mean to take that long teaching. Joey, do you want to lead us in a Zimun? Okay. We're gonna do the first paragraph out loud, the Zimun, and then we'll do everything else quietly, and then I'll lead us in Mariv.
Then your venture will be page 47. Shir HaMa'alot,
B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion hayinu kechomim az yemale tzchok binu ushonenu rina az yomru v'hagoyim hidil Adonai la'asoti meileh hidil Adonai la'asoti man hayinu semechim b'shuv Adonai et shivitenu בנגב הזורים בדימה ברינה יקצרו הלכם לכו בכו נושא משך הזרה בו יבוא ורינה נושא אלומתה יהי שמענה בברוך מצווה יד עולם Baruch Eloheinu shechalnu mishalov tuvo chayinu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hazan et haolam kulo betuvo bechemel rachamim hu noten lechem lechol basar ki stov tuvo hagadol Kami lochasalanu ve'ayisalanu mazan le'olam ba'ed ba'avur ha'yadol ki mazan yifarnes hakol ki mazan lechol briyotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. Shakoch to Joey. We are going to continue with Mariv. If you're able to do so, please rise, page 264. והוא רחום יכפר עליו ולא ישחית, והיא בא לשיבה פה ולרקו חמתו אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קורנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ומעביר ים ומביא לילה מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אלך וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים. אהבת עולם ותשמח ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Adonai Elohim Amen. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה בני ישראל לכהנו שירה ושמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך בעלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורתי לא תוסף אליהם מלכותך ראו בניך בוקר היום לפני משה זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פתה אדוני את יעקב וגולה מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל אשכיבנו ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ושלום ותהווה עד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן ברוך אדוני שכן שלום הללויה ברוך אדוני כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמי עד תמלוך וכבוד לנו מלך עליה אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך מכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד וכל מעשיו יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבם בהמד יברך יוטה וימליך מלכותי וחיי כל יום וכל וחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבם ברך לעולם לעולמי המיה יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש מקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה נביא עלמה ואמרו amen. The whispered Amidah is on page 270. have not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 279. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בהמה דברה קרתי והמליך מלכותי, וחיי יכונים יום יכונים חיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן, יהי שמירה וברך לעולם לעמי המיה, יתברך וישבח ויתבר ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש, ותקודשה ברכו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן, ואינו אמן אלוהינו אלינו מעשה ידינו כוננו אלינו מעשה ידינו כוננו, ישב ושדה ושדה יתוננו. יקראני ואינו עמו אנוכי בצרח הזה וכבדי אורחים ימסביהו והראהו בשועתי אורחים ימסביהו והראהו בשועתי page 216 ואתה קדוש יוספתי לא תזרע וקרא זרע זה ואמר קדוש 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 על נצח וקרא צפון ומקבלים דמידין ותישאני רוח ואשמע אחרי קורש גדול ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ויפתחו ויחדש שמך כי לא עזבת דרשך אדוני אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגיל תורה וידיר page 280 יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה בהמה דברה קרתי והמליך מלכותי בחיי יכונים יום יכונים חיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמירה וברך לעולם לעמי המיה יתברך וישבח ויתבר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש ותקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תאמירנה בעלמה ואמרו אמן תתקבל צדון ובדון דכל ישראל קודם ובהון דבי שמיה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום הרבים שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום ירמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל התגלה את הרשות של זה אנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מחם ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד Mourner's Kaddish page 282 יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמה דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם לעמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. We will very quickly do Havdalah. I am sorry that it's a few minutes over, but we'll do it fast. Yanai nanai nai 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 yanai nai 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 yanai yanai nai 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 yanai nai 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 הנה אל ישועתי, אפתח ולא אפחד, Ki ozi vezimratya, Adonai vayehi li lishua, Ushafte mayim besason, Mimane Yeshua, Ladonai Yeshua, Alamcha virchatecha tzela, Adonai tzevaot, Imanu, Miskav lanu, Elohei Yaakov Selah, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Yoshia, Hamelech Ya'aneinu V'yom Koreinu LaYehudim. Hayta ora vesimcha vesason veikar ken tieh lanu kos Yeshuotesa uveshem Adonai ekra yainanai yananai nainai yainanai yananai nainai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei mirei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech ben Yisrael le'amim ben yom hashvi'i le'sheshet yamei hamaseh Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh lechol hamavdil ben kodesh lechol Adotenu imchom Zareinu v'chasveinu yarbe yarbe kacho Ka'hakochavim b'layla Zareinu v'chasveinu yarbe yarbe kacho Ka'hakochavim b'layla Shavua tov 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 Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Hatishvi Eliyahu Eliyahu Giladi Bimera Ve'yameinu Yavo Eleinu Imashiach ben David Imashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening, and we will see you throughout the week. Have a great week.
Anyone who has a car who can take us to the Wilshire Crest Hotel?
I am not go- Sorry, I don't have a car here.
Where do you wanna go?
Wilshire Crest Hotel.
I'll take you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I take one of your benches now?
Sure.
Where's Wilshire?
It's at the corner of Orange and Crest Heights.
Shavua Tov, everyone. See you soon.
Tell Rabbi says, we enjoyed it here.
Okay, Rabbi Klinkfeld?
Yeah,
Will do.
we'll be in touch.
Nice meeting you.
And nice meeting you too. That was really nice. Don't say anything.
I think that's what they have.
No, that's okay.
She said you can take one.
It's in the mirror.